Hello and welcome to Season 2 of the Road End podcast. Each episode we will speak to a new guest, get to know them and hear their stories about Liverpool Football Club.
Hi everyone and welcome to Season 2 of the Road End podcast. Today I'm joined by former Red, Stephen Wright. Stephen was part of the brilliant youth set-up in the late 90s before moving to the first team and being part of the historic era under Gerard Houllier. Okay, Stephen, thanks for joining. How are you, mate?
Very well, pal. Very well. You?
Good to see you. It feels like forever since I've seen you, since I've seen your face.
Loads of people say that. As I say, I'm bloody hell. I'm over at Liverpool hell of a lot. You know what I mean? Especially with the academy and that, where obviously the role that I play down there. So yeah.
Yeah, well, I'm going to come into that shortly, but let's start with obviously the earlier days. You moved to Liverpool. How old was you when you actually signed for the club?
It was back then. I was 9 years of age. Came in there, classed as the academy. Then it was called the School of Excellence with Steve Highway. That's when it started. So yeah, in and around local areas. So my area was Bootle Ways. We had a scout there, was Holly, and as I say, it went from there.
You made your debut. If I remember right, it's against Stoke in that mad 8-0 game, which I've never seen happen again. What was it like when you come on the pitch?
It was just a great experience. I think it came when I was the least expecting. Obviously, I think I had a couple of other chances earlier on as well, maybe the year before as well. It was good for the academy and the pathway for obviously the following players.
You replaced Marcus Babbel, is that right? Not a bad sub, is it?
Yeah, he was brilliant with me. As I say, he was such a class himself. Carra as well, and Sammy Ippier and Stephen Enshaw, you know, coming into the team, and such big players like themselves, and the stature of, you know, the international careers that they had, and, you know, the time when they were with us, you know, really good adversaries to our football club, and they helped me a lot.
What was it like playing next to Carragher then?
He was one of the first and original. I think I got sat down around about, it was, you know, just, I think it was first year Whitey, and Steve Highway sat like loads of us down and watching the first team just as Jamie just got into it. We sat down and watched them, and Steve was asking questions. Steve Highway this was, and just said, listen, you know, Stevie Gerrard, Paul Ince, and they're the ones to look at. And he always said to me, Jamie Carragher, and I didn't get it at the time, because I thought, he's only just gone into the first team. He's only 3 years older than me. But in the long run, I actually got it, because he just said, listen, you're not dissimilar from the same sort of characters and the way you play. And, you know, as I say, and I looked at it, I go, yeah, I got that. And I knew, and as I say, only until recently when I seen Jay, that was what it was. It's, you know what I mean? Your idols are some of the players that you don't always think of, but Jamie was a player that I looked up to as well. Yeah.
What was it like being part of that era? Because obviously, like you've said, you've come through with a few of the players who went on to have good careers as well, or brilliant careers, let's say. What was it like to be part of that successful spell? Because I was in Dortmund as a fan, obviously. You was part of the squad that day. It must have been brilliant to play with that team.
It was. I mean, you know what went on before. As I say, we were classed as scapegoats throughout the 90s, you know what I mean? And the ever changing managers and teams and Spice Boys and things like that. And then obviously there was an influx of foreign managers coming to the Premier League, which obviously from Arsenal, which is, you know, Arsene Wenger, and obviously Gerrard had come in to take over the role with Roy Evans. And it was a strange one. I don't think anyone ever thought it'd work at the start anyway, but, you know, it never in the end. And then Gerrard overtook the role, and he just turned it a little bit more professional. You know, the lads, and obviously the lads that, you know, didn't want to be there, he got them out, and the ones that wanted to play for the club stayed. And, you know, he got a great group of lads that played for him, and it was a blend of youth and experience as well at that time. And he was going on to bigger and better things, you know, as I say. So it only shows you, obviously, in the 2001, the 5 trophies in the 1 year. So that being a part of that, you know, in my life and for where I got to, you know, it was a tremendous year. It was a really good year.
Yeah. Well, obviously as a kid, season ticket holder, I was sat with my dad, and it was always good to see like local lads come through the system, especially as a Scouser. It must have been unbelievable. You made 21 appearances in total. What do you think you could have done more? Because when I look at when you played, you had everything that we wanted to see. And for them to be sold, to be replaced by Abel Xavier, no disrespect to him, it doesn't make sense to me as like a local lad to begin with. But how did that feel?
It hurt a lot because the start of it was me and Stephen getting our chance to go away as young lads to Celta Vigo. So we thought that we were just going to be on the trip, blend in, go and get the experience to see what life is going to be, you know what I mean, basically. And in the end, it turned out that we both got on the bench because I think it was Phil Babb and Jason McAtee either got injured or illness, and we were both on the bench. And we both sat there in the meeting room beforehand and went nudging each other, and we're on here. And I think we covered every blade of grass as we were warming up. So that was how close we were. And then obviously going through the next couple of months, obviously Stephen got the chance, and then I didn't quite. So it came about that I had a chance to go on loan to Crewe. It happened. It just came out of the blue, and I remember standing outside with a couple of the younger lads. We just had finished training. We were doing a little bit extra, and I remember Gerard Dooley calling me and said, "Listen, Crewe are asking for you." Lo and be told, further along the line when I'd seen Babsy being in there half an hour before, and he'd asked him, and Babsy said no. So basically, it came down to, listen, I just wanted to play football. Now, he just said it'd be a great experience. And as soon as he said that, I went, yeah, go on then. Go and learn and go and experience it somewhere else. Listen, Liverpool was my life. I know no different. I just thought, if I'm going to play, listen, I played loads of Messi games. You'll have seen it, you know what I mean? And, I went to Crewe, and as I say, I think I played in every other position other than goalkeeper there. But the first few games, I'd done my ankle in, a really bad one against Paul Dalglish away at Norwich, and it was a ligament damage right the way through, and 2 snaps of me. It was a horrible one. So it was about 3.5 months, and then obviously after that went straight back to Crewe. But then coming back, we had the likes of Jimmy Traore coming in, Gregory Vignal, and it was and I knew Gerard had known these players because he'd been in the French national team and the youngsters, and I knew he'd known the best younger players. But obviously, being a local lad and getting that chance, you want more, and that's all you want to do. You want to play for the first team, and it is tough working hard, and you'll probably speak to most of the lads, and they'll probably say the same thing. You're working to play in that first team, and if you're not getting a chance, sometimes you're young lads, you take it on board, and the experience is great, but you just want to play. Traveling here, there, and everywhere, playing resi games, and coming back off European trips without even getting in the squad or being in the squad, not training and having to play games, and it was tough, but it was the grounding that you need to play. They wanted to probably see that, and they thought his attitude's great, you know what I mean? And if they seen a different attitude, and I'd go, can't be honest with this, don't need this, you know what I mean? I'm traveling all over the place and not getting anything out of it. But I think that's what they wanted. So, yeah, the pathway then, being a local lad, it was brilliant because you had obviously Robbie in the team, John Massio probably just left. He was in and around it. You had David Tomo, you had Carra, you had Michael Owen, you had Stevie G. So, for that pathway for the next one to come through was myself, and that's what I wanted to do. And as I say, as you just rectified before, it was a tough one to take. It was really hard. We'd been away to I think it was Switzerland and that we usually go to, and on the way back, Gerard Houllier pulled me at the bottom when we just got off the airplane and said, listen, the club have accepted a fee for you. And I went, what does that mean? I didn't know. He said, listen, the club have accepted fee, can we sit down tomorrow morning? So on the way back up, my dad was there because my dad, obviously, he was working for Liverpool at the time. He said, what do you say? He said, Sunderland have accepted a fee for me. I said, what? So I didn't know. I didn't sleep that night and went in to have the conversation with Gerard the next day. And, he just said, listen, he said, speak to your agent and you don't have to. I think I just signed another 5-year contract, in a short period of time, just at the end of the season as well. So
weird, that isn't
it? Yeah. So listen, I could have stayed there. I could have, said no, I don't, and I want to try another year. Which, in hindsight, you look back and you go, maybe I should have because of what happened with Abel. But as I say, I was a youngster coming through, and Peter Reid was the manager down there, and he'd been watching me for the last few years. Now, when we went down there, it was a case of, listen, come and have a look. And that's what my agent said, listen, you don't have to do anything. There's a number of teams that came in on the way up. John Terry, as I say, I was with the England under 21s, and he gave us a call. A Tinkerman said, listen, he'd like to be at the table with Chelsea, Fulham, things like that. It was just surreal of, looking at it and, the team that you love, but everyone else wants you. Yeah. So I didn't get that at the time. But once I sat down with Peter Reid, it was a case of, listen, we've looked at you, we've wanted you for a long time, and, you're fit, you play. And basically, when I sat with Gerard earlier, listen, I never wanted that. I just wanted him to say, listen, you're a part of my plans. But I asked the question of, listen, am I in your plans going forward, or is Abel, a lot older than me? And I just thought, that's the way our football club's going, and it wasn't a nice feeling, but that's the way it was. I wanted to play. I got the bug. I got the love of playing in front of the fans, and I wanted to be at Liverpool. But to sat with Peter Reid, it was a different story. What he said to me and what they loved. It was what I wanted from Liverpool, which I never got.
I've seen the story with Carra when he lost his marbles about it, didn't he? He couldn't get his head round it, why they sold you.
You want everyone to do well. You want your teammates to do well, not just that the lads that are from local areas. And no disrespect to Abel, you know what I mean? He was a lot older. He was from the other side, which we always say with the Everton side. And I always thought I'd done well. And listen, you'll hear it from some of the other players. You're the young lad, so you'll always be, drafted to the side. Anyone comes in. I always remember the game season at the end of the season where we played Ipswich away and we won 5-0, was it? Carra suspended. So I went to left back and Abel Xavier came in at right back his first game and he scored. And I knew straight away what was going to happen. I knew he was going to stay in the team, Carra come back in at left back and me going to sit on the bench. I knew straight away. And if you got that in your head, then beforehand what's going to happen. So that was a tough one to take. And then obviously never got back in. And then obviously it came, we were near the end of the season. And then obviously that's the road, he pulled me at the end of the season, which was, everyone says, listen, could you have lasted another year? Probably, yeah. But, I was, 20, just turning 21, and I wanted to play. I wanted to play more. Resi football, got the best of me, and you sometimes getting niggles and injuries that you didn't want because you're frustrated a little bit. But to get into the first team and having such a period of time in there as well. Yeah, obviously it came about when Tomo came into the first team as well. So I don't know whether that had a different aspect on it as well.
Mm. Take me back to training with the first team then. Obviously, you sort of come through similar time as Stevie. Did you just know he was going to hit that next level?
Yeah. He had something, as I say, when players around you, it was like when we were growing up with Michael. Michael was always destined to be into our first team straight away. But that fueled the rest of the young lads as well at the same age, that we had our, the years below and the years above, the pathway is there for us. So if you're doing well and you're strong and you show what they want, then you'll go in. and myself and Stephen were doing really well at the time. So, you know, we were in and around it then. So I think, as I say, we'd just gone into the academy building on the opposite side to where we were, and we went and trained down at the university for I think it was the end of that year, January time, or it might have been the whole year if I can remember. And then we were travelling to and from. And it was just at the time when Kirby was getting built, and we were going down here. And
a good few players have come out of that youth, though, haven't they, with the School of Excellence? What was it like with Steve Highway then? Because a mate of mine was at the youth setup. He didn't go on to make it, but we all thought he was going to. He was just at different level in school. And he had a couple of little run-ins with Steve Highway, which probably hindered his career. But let's say, what was it like with him heading it up there?
Listen, I've heard loads. And my cousin, Derek, was at Liverpool, and he says the same thing as his mum and dad. But it was just his mentality of getting the best out of us. Now, I was one of the fortunate ones to get yes every time at the end of the year. And I know a lot of lads that got no's, you know what I mean? But you had the upbringing that you did. Now, prove to us that I'm wrong, if you know what I mean. Which that's what he wanted from a lot of players that left us. And some did, some didn't. And, you know, that was the way it was. It was, you know, as I said, it was more Hughie Macaulay and Dave Shannon were the ones that, you know, were in and around you, you know, best friend and arm around the shoulder. And sometimes Hughie bit of both. Dave was your best mate, where Steve, you know, when he was around, the standards went shot up. So you always knew. And I'm not saying that when Hughie and Dave wasn't there. I think when Steve comes around, everyone starts getting nervous because he was the head. He fronted it up, and you know, the man in the stature of what he's won at our football club. You know what I mean? You look at him, you go, bloody hell. But that was just the way it was. You know what I mean? I don't think Steve done it on purpose, but it was his job, and he couldn't take everyone. That's, you know, and I've seen, you know, close friends and mates that I grew up since they were 9, 10 years of age, you know what I mean, get released at the later stages. So it is what it is, and, you know, it's how you take it. Do you know what I mean? Do those players know that they were going to get released, you know what I mean, in their own heads? If you actually sat them down and gone, listen, could you have done better? Did you know at the time? Or you just don't know. Until you sit them down one-on-one.
Who was the best player you played with that didn't go on to make it?
We had a few good players in our team. Probably younger, like to Mano, you know, Dave Mannix.
Yeah.
I think, you know, obviously he was a couple of years below us, but obviously he was the next one to come through, like a Steven Gerrard, and you know what I mean. He was coming to play in some of the games that we were playing against our resis and things like that. So, and I think more so probably injuries hindered him. We had Michael Yates, who's in our academy now. He was a very good player at a young age. You know, had a good career at other clubs and other venues, and as I say, up in Scotland. But again, you know, there's loads that you could say. There is, you know what I mean? It's how it works, you know. And I've spoke to a lot of boys or a lot of lads that went away from us, and he said it's not the same. The professionalism's never the same. And I said, well, you got treated like royalty with us. You know what I mean? It was, if we had players, you know, he didn't worry about the Evertons, the Man Uniteds, them games. He always worried about the Berries, the Wigans, Huddersfields, all the teams that we play over there. And he always said, we know if you're going to be a good player and go on to big and better things into our resis, into the first team, by seeing you in them fixtures, because first of all you have to match them for the endeavour and what you have, and your skill levels should come through because you're at Liverpool Football Club, you know. So yeah.
Moving on to the Sunderland time, then I won't talk too much about your other clubs because obviously it's a Liverpool podcast. But when you went to Sunderland, you had a good run in the team. The first season, I think you played enough every game.
Yeah.
But then the typical thing of happens, a couple of big injuries, and then it's difficult getting back in the side. How is it for us? We've played Sunday League, all these levels, they're not compared to it. How difficult is it mentally as a footballer when you suffer such a big injury like you did?
Listen, I treat it a different way as other people. Some people can't get their heads around it. The way I played, the way I played. I was all full in your face, winner takes all, that sort of thing. And, if it's a 50-50, I know I'm going to win it. I want to win it. Now, I was very loyal to the managers that I played for. Some of the things that I look back now and, I look at this day and age and the stats and the sports science around all the players now, I'd have probably got help nowadays, going back. Listen, I was playing with injections. I was playing with, shouldn't have played in games. But listen, it's a tough world. Someone takes your place, then it's tough to get back into that place. In your head, you're thinking, okay, I want to get back. The manager's saying, listen, my job's on the line. Listen, I need you to play. The physio, listen, it's like, yeah, not a problem. That's the way I always was with the managers that I've played for. And when I look back at it, listen, if I go back again tomorrow to the start, I'd do exactly the same thing, because those people have given me love. They took from them. It didn't, because of some of the injuries were horrible, nasty injuries that I had. So it is, and you're playing for a manager that maybe, as I say, really brought me in. I only had, I think, 14 games with him, and then he got the bullet. So when you look at it like that, for someone like that to bring you in and you think, I've just signed a long contract here, I'm leaving Liverpool, and then he goes, Burns Hass is a Swiss international. You can have his number 2, you can have his house, you can have this, you can have that. And you go, why are you doing this? He said, because I want you. I've watched you for 3-4 years, and we've wanted you that much, and we've got you, so we want to keep you. And when someone says that to you, you feel loved, you feel wanted. So you would go on the football pitch and give him everything now. And that's what I've done. And as I say, horrible, nasty injuries to ankle ligaments again, the same one as, what we had with Nick Crew. And then it stemmed from there, the ongoing, as I say, Wilkinson, Sergeant Wilco, as we call him, came in, and as I say, and then Mick McCarthy, and then Roy Keane. It's tough. Listen, mentally, injury, it was a case of, listen, my missus knew, because I've been with the same missus now, my wife now, so it was, she knew in my head that, listen, the only way he copes with it is I went on the drink. And that, listen, I was never a plonky or nothing like that. Listen, I loved the drink. It was at the times that when I could, but it was how I coped the first 24 hours. You know what I mean? She knew that I'd go out and then I'd go the next day. I had to get my head down, and that first 24 hours is vital. You don't see it, you don't hear the feels and that, you don't hear it. When you're in and amongst it, and you know that you're going to be out 3, 4, 5, 6 months, that's your head going, I don't know. The only way I know is go and do what I do, get my head set down after a day or two, and then mentally, that's probably how I coped. Certain other players cope differently.
You mentioned Roy Keane. What was it like being in the dressing room with him as the gaffer? Because obviously the stories we hear, he's a lunatic.
Born in Liverpool, you grow up to not hate or despise. Listen, they're our rivals. Now, every time we played against Man United, listen, you know that that's the game. That's the game you want to play in. I'd just got over an injury, just getting over an injury. So him coming in, I'm thinking, like, sit down, you know what I mean? New regime, go again. And he came in, and listen, when he spoke, everyone sat down and respected. I respect him. What an absolute player that in his lifetime, one of the best midfielders in Europe at the time for Man United. And he wanted me to go out on loan and get a little bit of fitness. We sat down, listen, face to face, and listen, you're one of my players. I'd like to see you. So got me out on loan to Stoke at the time, who then went up the end of that season, first time in the Premier League. So was playing really well for Stoke, done okay. And I think I had 6 months left on my contract coming back, but Stoke wanted to sign me. So Stoke spoke to my agent, wanted to do a deal. And I went, yeah, get it done. They're doing okay up there at Sunderland at the time. So, yeah, it was one of them. And he wouldn't let me go. Roy Keane stopped it and said, no, you're going to be a big player for us. You've been winning. You're going to be like a new player to us. So a new signing. So he got in Andy Griffin, I think, from Newcastle at the time. So that road had gone. So the time that I had the period where I went no to my agents, like get the deal done. No, Roy Keane said no. You got 6 months left. Come and fight for your place. So I went fine. Got back. It was the January, so it was the first weekend coming into the FA Cup. Dwight York, who else? Andy Cole was there coming into the training for the 2 or 3 days before, and said, "Righty, you know what I mean? It's like a new player, having a new player back because he had quite a few injuries. So it's perfect. It was a great time going in. Come the Saturday squad time, I wasn't even in the squad.
What? How does that make sense?
So, talk me through that. Yeah, don't know. It was a real that was like a dagger to the heart. You know what I mean? Asking for your back and then doing what you do, and then my head just went. I just, as we were on our way out, I just said, "I'll see you Monday." I didn't even see the game. Walked straight out of the stadium. Seeing it Monday. Yeah. Wow. So I wasn't in the squad. It was a tough one to take. Bringing me back, and then you just don't get what. And then sat down, and I asked him, well, why? And I didn't get a proper answer. He just said, "Fight for your place." And then with a phone call going the night before, the lads had already travelled, and it was PR, personal assistant from Roy Keane. "Stephen, Roy wants you down." And I went, "What for?" So I've been in a squad. Well, I've been in a couple of squads and on the bench and stuff like that, but not made, never played. So I thought he's just taking me down here to take the piss out of me here. So ended up starting. Ended up starting next to Johnny Evans, and we won. Madness.
Mad. Well, let's move on to Wrexham then. So Rob McElhenney and Ryan Reynolds, they've invested heavily in the men's and the women's team now. They've gone up as champions. What was your thoughts when obviously this is your previous club, so what was your thoughts when they were linked to taking over? Because I just thought it was a bit of a PR stunt.
Yeah, I think everyone did. From some of the stories beforehand, I think they went to have a look at another club along the lines of, history-wise, and I think Chesterfield was mentioned. I don't know how true it was. And then obviously Wrexham with the history of, being the oldest stadium in the world. So I think that was one of the big reasons that they wanted to do it. And, don't get me wrong, from day one, they've said what they've said that they're going to do, and they've done. They've bought the club, they've bought the stadium. So now they're doing the image rights to Wrexham in 1864, and they're doing good things. I played there, and it was a tough place. But what it's give a group of fans, the town, or now what is a city, hope. It's give that something to look forward to, and it's always been a harsh times over in Wrexham. But this now, it's just the women's game, the men's game. My son actually plays for Wrexham. He's a first year scholar. If they win tomorrow, they win the league as well. So they'll get paraded on Saturday, which, that'll be great to see. So there's good things happening, and, what they've said at the start, they didn't even know each other, the episodes. And that's what I didn't know. I thought they knew each other, but they've come together, and, they've got a club there with it's steeped in history, and that's all you're hearing over here. That's the people are always upbeat, like our city is when Liverpool are upbeat. Obviously, when Everton aren't, it's a different place. But it's brought the community together as well.
Yeah. Paul Mullen seems to be the main man. It's good to have a Scouser doing well and getting so much publicity in it.
Get everywhere, don't we?
Like water. To finish on then, I've read a little bit about what you're up to now and stuff on the internet. You're CEO of St. Paul's Sporting Group. Now, I don't know anything about that, but what does that involve for you then on a day-to-day?
It started off, two lads that I'd known for quite some time now, who had the business partners, and basically they just said, listen, you over the years, you've got a good knowledge and entrepreneurial role, and the reason behind it was to educate young and up-and-coming sports people, you know what I mean? All I kept hearing was, listen, we'll look after your money, you just sort yourself out your pitch and stuff like that. And I was like, yeah, fine. But I'm still hearing that now. can I do something different? Do I have to put all my eggs in one basket? Do I have to dive a lot of my information to all these financial people where I don't really want to? Or can I do that myself? Can I educate myself to do bits of this? Or have the knowledge? I know some people that just go, yes, it is, I'll just do that. And they're on the take. And it's so sad. That's one of the main reasons that I actually started about a year ago, and it came about. And yeah, it's, day to day, I'm now and again in the office and doing things. But other than that, I'm around football, I'm coaching. With our academy, I do the development groups. And I help out Wrexham every now and again if they need it. So
you're a talent scout at Liverpool, is that right? Or is it just coaching?
Yeah, I went in just before, I think it was about 4.5 years ago, for a role in our football club. So nothing was available, and basically it was I came out and I knew a couple of lads on the outside, and they just said, "Listen, would you go into a recruitment role?" Loved every minute of it, and then obviously our academy manager, who's Alex, he didn't really like the development groups at the time. And then obviously he came about and it worked. Another former player, John Newby, is there. So he heads that up. And basically it's a centre for kids that, obviously we want to develop from grassroots and not give, when you go into our main group, not be overawed. Because it is a tough world in there. And, we're giving them, sessions before they go into the main group. So yeah, it's brilliant. I love every minute of it, and I think that's where I see myself. The development side, just gives you that, inspires you as well. What it inspired me, and it's brilliant. It's good what we do. And
we are now going to do a quick fire round with our guests. This could be very controversial.
I won't ask you too much. I won't go into too much, and I certainly won't poke any questions that I don't have to. The best player you've played with?
Steven Gerrard.
What makes him so special?
You could put him on a football pitch and he'll be the best player in every position.
The best manager you've played with?
Best manager, it'd have to be Mick McCarthy, because we had our best times. McCarthy was a really solid, in your face, you do it for me on the pitch, I'll do it for you off the pitch. I'd have to say Mick, yeah.
Obviously, other than Anfield, what's the best ground you've played in?
It'd have to be the Bernabeu. Yeah, I think it came on late on. Yeah, I think it was when Steve McManaman went to Real Madrid. I think we had that game, in the pre-season where we had the tournament there. And I came on. So, yeah, I think it'd have to be, Barcelona, Real Madrid, some venues.
Did you nail Steve McManaman because he left?
No, Mac is great. Mac is a great lad, as I say. He had his what he wanted to do, and you know what I mean? As I say, he wanted to go and play in the world football for the world. But I always think that you only leave big clubs over here to go to the likes of Real Madrid and Barcelona.
If you didn't make it as a footballer, what would you think you'd have done?
Bricklayer.
Why bricklayer?
I don't know, mate. I listen, growing up in Liverpool, I don't know what I'd have been. At school, I always wanted to build my own house. I like that entrepreneurial side, and I wanted to, get the chance to go and build my own house and actually do it myself, you know what I mean? Be a part of it, the structure, and I had a few properties going forward and things like that. When I used to do it, I used to get involved and rip them out, and they were horrible. And to see what it looks like after, it just makes you feel like $1 million just, and that's what I had when I was a kid. I think I actually put that when I was a kid, when I was on my work experience, I wanted to be a bricklayer. Before they said, because in school, they always thought, like, when you're in, I said, listen, other than if I don't make it as a footballer, I think I actually said I'd be a bricklayer.
But you got the football.
I got the football, yeah.
I had Dave Galley on the last episode, obviously your previous physio, and I asked him the question of what would you have done if you weren't a physio, and he said, unfortunately, my answer would be the same as Crouchy's, a virgin. Wasn't expecting that from him.
No, I'd never thought of from Dave, no.
Okay, and last question before we finish. If you've got any advice for a youngster wanting to make it in football, what would it be?
Keep learning, ask questions, go and ask them questions, go and learn from them. Obviously, it's the biggest thing, having that experience to show and tell people. As I say, listen, my father was saying it to me as a young kid, you have to listen to your coaches. And bloody hell, I had one of the best, didn't I, Steve Harvey, who was, what he won at our football club. So, yeah, it was, I think, asking questions, always have questions.
Okay, well, let's call it a pod there, mate. Nice one for joining and obviously getting back to me in the first place. It's been great to have you on. It's been good to listen to your stories as well. Hopefully catch you soon, mate. But yeah, I wish you all the best.
Thank you, John.
Thanks to everyone for listening in to today's podcast, and thank you to our amazing guests. Without them, this wouldn't be possible. Don't forget to follow us on social media, twitter.com/The Road End Pod, and on Instagram /The Road End Pod.